Hello, it's Mr. Channels again, and we're going to continue where we left off yesterday as far as the Trojan War. Put this thing on Flipgrid about knowing the story about how your parents met, which honestly met with pretty lukewarm response, and that's okay. So we may try another one of those at some point. So we're going to continue on with the Trojan War. Uh, Somebody did throw out a guess there of, asking about how your parents met, maybe meaning, oh, we're going to talk about Paris and Helen, but we're still a little ways away from that. So instead, let's talk about a nymph whose son will be greater than his father. And we alluded to this when we talked about the punishment of Prometheus, because uh, yes, there was the whole issue of tricking Zeus with the sacrifice and then stealing fire back for man. But the other issue was that Prometheus knows the identity of this nymph and he will not tell Zeus. And so Zeus, that's part of the reason for his punishment. Now, in a story we haven't encountered yet, somebody kills the eagle that is harassing Prometheus on a daily basis. And at that point, Zeus and Prometheus swing a little deal. Anyway, the nymph, her name is Thetis. And if you remember back to Hephaestus, she's the one who took care of him after Hera threw him off Mount Olympus. And he makes her a nice necklace. And then, of course, she sees Hera, and Hera says, hey, would he make me something? And that's when we have the whole chair that she sits in and can't get out of experience. Now, Zeus and Poseidon are both pretty concerned about this whole nymph who will have a son greater than his father, because what if one of them, since neither of them are entirely true to their marriage vows, what if one of them decides to have relations with a nymph and it turns out, oh gosh, somebody emerges who's greater than the two of them? But what if Hermes or Apollo, could they have a child with this nymph that would be greater than Zeus? So this is kind of an issue for them. Don't want to be overthrown. And of course, Prometheus knows, and he finally gives it up for his freedom. He says, hey, it's Thetis. That's the one who's going to have a son greater than his father. So Zeus decides, hey, what's the best idea here? We don't want her to end up having relations with a god. So how about we marry her to a human? That just makes good sense, right? I mean, any human, even the greatest human, isn't going to be a match for the gods. So that's just a really wise idea on Zeus's part. The person they choose is a guy named Pelias. And, we're sort of backwards on things right now, but eventually we'll talk a little bit about Pelias in association with another story. He's got kind of a cool backstory. But they choose him, and they essentially say, hey, here you go. You get to marry this very beautiful person who's really out of your league. What do you think about that? And he's thrilled. Yeah, that sounds great. But there's a catch. Uh, he has to wait on the beach in a cave, and when she comes to sunbathe, he has to hop out, grab her, hold on to her until she agrees, which uh, probably not a good start to a marriage, honestly. But anyway, so he has to persuade her, and the catch is too that she changes shape. And so they tell him, you're going to just have to hang on. She'll change shape. Water divinities can do that. And so he does what they say. He hangs out in this cave and he runs out and grabs her, and she can't get away, but she starts to change shape. And first, she changes into a snake, but he hangs on. She changes into a lion. He still hangs on. She changes into a bear. Things are definitely getting more difficult here. But he's still hanging on. Like I said, good dude, a courageous guy. And finally, she changes into fire, and still he hangs on. I mean, he does tell her how hot she is, but he hangs on even in the midst of all that. He holds on and he persuades her. She says, "All right, I'll marry you." Quick picture here, and then I'm going to hit my time limit, I have a feeling. So here he is, hanging on. There's a good Greek painting, probably a wine dish. But notice there's the lion and there's the snake. I don't think the bear shows up in this